Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we're going to talk about one of my favorite fall bass fishing tips, and it's going to be how to catch bigger bass throughout the fall. You are going to go way down on your numbers, but if you want to go out and trophy hunt this time of year, this is the time of year to do it. Get out there, fish some big baits, and try and catch some big bass that are feeding up for the fall. You might not catch as many fish doing this, like I said. It's not a tournament technique usually, unless you're truly fishing to win a tournament and you're gonna hero or zero on it. This is the way to do it. We're gonna break down everything you need to know about this technique throughout today's video, so stay tuned. Let's get right into it. All right, so I've already done a video about how to find fall bass. We're gonna briefly touch on some of that stuff that I talked about, but that's actually gonna be linked at the end of today's video on how to actually go back and actually find where these areas are, on what these fish are gonna be looking for. What I'm gonna be doing is fishing very, very shallow for these fish during the turnover. And like I mentioned in that video, what happens in turnover is your colder water is actually out deeper, your warmer water is up shallower, and as you get colder nights and that water temperature starts to drop, those will flip and your colder water will be up shallow, and that's where those fish will go. A lot of the bait fish will show up there first, and then the bass will follow. They will get up there shallow and start feeding on all the bait fish that are up there. You'll have small ones that come up there too, but this is where a lot of the big ones, they come out of the woodwork this time of year. They disappear all summer long. You're probably wondering, like, all spring, I kept catching these big fish throughout the pre-spawn. They were on beds. I don't know where they went. Then all of a sudden they just appear up shallow again. They're up there to feed on those bait fish and gorge themselves before the fall. And if you fish the right areas and the right baits, you will catch some monster fish this time of year. But there are many times, we're gonna break down a lake on Navionics here in a second. I've fished that lake in the fall with this technique, and you will go all day and catch one, maybe two fish, but they will be absolute monsters of fish. Like if you set the hook, it's going to be a big one. Like the lake that I'm gonna talk about, it's a largemouth lake with some smallmouth in it. And the smallmouth are much bigger, but they're few and far between. And even the largemouth, like they cap out usually around 3.5 pounds. I caught right here on this bait right here, I caught a 4.5 pound largemouth out of this lake. It was the only fish I caught all day, but it was a giant. So it just depends on what you're looking to do this time of year. Some things, that's not fun for people. If it's fun for you to go out and catch giant fish, this is the way to do it. If it's fun for you to go out and catch numbers of fish, you probably don't want to try this technique too much because it's probably not going to work out too well for you. But let's break down first the actual Navionics page and what we're looking for. We're going to do this briefly. Like I said, I already covered this in another video, but I go onto Navionics web app on my phone. That's how I always look up my fishing spots and try and learn new areas. And like we talked about in the other video, we're looking for very high percentage areas. So a point is a perfect one. If there's hard bottom on that point, that's where they're going to be. When you have that turnover, you're going to have income cold water from creeks and stuff like that. So a creek mouth is a perfect area. They're going to gang up on that creek mouth. The bait will be there. They'll pin the bait up against the bank. They'll still have that cold oxygenated water coming in, and they'll just gorge themselves on bait all day long. That's a key area for them to be in. And then any type of flat. So there's a bunch of them on this type of lake, but you can see like up here, this is a big flat next to deep water. They can get up on this flat. They'll ride that break. They'll look for bait. They might sit right off the break and push the bait up on the break, but they'll ride all along that and fish in. They'll be in that area, or another area would be something like this, where they have a deeper point. They can spend their time out in the summer out here, and then they can actually move up on this flat and feed. They're going to cover shallow areas with rock. That's really where I'm going to look. The bait fish are going to get up there around the rock and wind-blown areas. So a lot of times that wind-blown area is going to be where all the plankton is going to go, which is going to draw the bait fish. When the bait fish get there, the bass are going to follow. During the fall, that's what they're going to be looking for. They're just going to be chasing those bait fish, trying to get as many as they can in their belly before winter. Now, that's where your bait selection is going to come in to determine what you want to throw to catch the biggest fish in your lake. So my number one go-to, if I'm looking to cover, like I said, you're going to have to cover a ton of water to find those fish to do this. So if I'm looking to cover water, I want baits that I can fish quickly, but big baits that will draw big fish in. So my number one and number two baits right here, top waters. I will throw top water in the fall until that water hits like 60 degrees, 58 range. I'll throw top water and I'll look for some of the biggest bass in the lake. The 6 cents catwalk is a great choice. I'll either throw it in like a bone color or a chrome color. It's the biggest top water that they make, so it'll be loud, noisy, draws fish from a distance. You want something that can draw fish from a distance, especially if you have clearer water. Those fish, you might not have to cast right on their head to get them to bite. They'll come from a long way away to get it if you're fishing something that is worth their time to go and get. So that's a great one there, but my true favorite is going to be the whopper plopper. I love throwing a whopper plopper this time of year, covering a ton of water, burning this thing around everywhere I can up shallow, and your size will determine what you catch on it. So I will not fish a 90 this time of year. The 90 has such a small tail, it puts off such a little plop, it does not work very well. It works great in some rivers around here, like the Pittsburgh rivers and stuff, because it puts off that subtle plop to it. The 110 is the color that or the size that I really like to go with this time of year. It's not too big like the 130, but I've caught smallmouth on this, I've caught largemouth, big fish. It has just enough noise in the tail to really draw fish in, and you can cover a ton of water. So the bone whopper plopper is an excellent choice to cover a ton of water and find those fish. As we're working our way down in the water column, depending on the type of lake that you're on, you can fish a square bill if your fish are really, really shallow still. But some of the other ones, I'll fish like mid-depth diving crankbaits off the edge of those breaks where those fish are trying to pin those fish up on those breaks, or those points or creek mouths. And if you fish in a lake that doesn't have shad, or you know those fish really feed on crawfish, like some of those highland reservoirs, I have a couple by my house that they actually will start to feed on crawfish a little bit more. Something like the 6 cents curve in a crawfish color can even be an excellent choice as well. Just big, aggressive moving baits. You're gonna limit your number of bites that you have by doing that, but they should be bigger fish in turn. Another one of my very good favorites here, depending on what you have in your lake, I'll fish it around anything but wood, is going to be a chatterbait. And you can see I actually have a green pumpkin one in here. So if you have fish that are feeding on bluegills, chasing a bunch of bluegills around, you don't have shad in your lake, or you're fishing ponds, I'll go with a chatterbait in a bluegill color, and it'll mimic those great. And you're still mimicking the bait fish, but throwing something large and aggressive, trying to get less numbers of bites, more quality. Again, that's my key in the fall. That's really what I go for. I fish for less numbers, more quality. That's the way that I like to do it. Even a chartreuse and white chatterbait is a great option as well. You can go with spinner baits. You can go with jerk baits. You can do anything that those big, aggressive, moving baits, even big swim baits. I don't do it a whole lot up here. It's something I'm going to start getting into a little bit more next year. If you want to see me start fishing some larger swim baits just to see like what can happen up here in the Northeast, I know that's a big southern thing of fishing big glide baits, big soft swim baits, stuff like that. If you'd like to see me fish those actually up here in the Northeast, leave a comment down below. We can get some of those big and higher dollar swim baits, not necessarily higher dollar. We can try and find some budget ones as well, and start experimenting in the swim bait game. But that would be an excellent choice in the fall as well. Again, you're limiting your numbers with that, but they're going to be looking for shad that are this big that they're trying to eat and live through the fall. So if you're throwing a swim bait that's this big that looks like a shad, it gets you a good chance that that fish sees that from a long way away and has to make the trip over there to go eat that bait. So great choice for the fall. Anything big, loud, aggressive, fish it shallow, cover a ton of water. One of my favorite ways to catch large numbers and less quantity of fish this time of year. If you want to see that video talking all about why this happens, where those fish go this time of year, check that one out right here. Hit that subscribe button down below, and thanks for watching.